Hello, space fans. This is Saxmo, and you're watching the Saxmo Space Show, a place where we discuss everything from science fiction to science fact and everything in between about space. Since this is my first episode, I wanted to make sure I gave you guys a little bit of a background about who I am and why I started this channel. So, I was born and raised on Star Trek and Star Wars, and every science fiction movie and book series you can think of. I loved watching space, anything, every documentary that I can get my hands on. I was enthralled, and that was part of the reason why I joined the military. Stayed there for 17 years. I was planning on being an astronaut, but that didn't work out. So once I got out, I got my bachelor's degree in commercial space operations from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and my master's degree in space studies from American Military University. Now I'm using my experience and my education to help spread the word and the love of space to all of you. Stay tuned to the end of each episode where I'll be providing you with a random space fact question of the day. This question is meant to help you exercise your own online research ability and help you find the answers to your own questions. Post your answers in the comments below along with a question that you would like me to answer. The first person to answer my question correctly, I will focus on answering their question on our next episode. Depending on how detailed the question can be, it might take up the whole episode, so good luck. So, today's subject is going to be what is space? So, the easiest way to define space is the lack of atmosphere. It's everything that's beyond the atmosphere of a planet. So, what is the atmosphere, you might ask? The atmosphere is the blanket of gases that are held to a planet's surface by its gravity well. So that means that what you breathe now, what every bird flies in, what every airplane flies in, and that is all the atmosphere of the Earth. And everything beyond that, that boundary line, is space. That boundary line between the Earth's atmosphere and space is sometimes arbitrary, depending on what section of government or what sector of the education space you ask. When it comes to the government and militaries like the Space Force, the Air Force, NOAA, and NASA, as well as the FAA, the administrative limit of space is 50 miles above the Earth's surface. This is the defining line for when somebody is technically considered an astronaut. They have passed that 50-mile marker, and once they've gone that high up, they earn their astronaut wings. The next boundary for space would be the Kármán line. This is a uh, imaginary line about 60 miles above the Earth's atmosphere. This is the point when an airplane's wings can no longer provide lift that is provided by Bernoulli's principle of the higher the speed of a fluid, the less pressure of that fluid. That's the science and mechanic that actually lets aircraft wings provide lift and that upward force for the aircraft to lift off the ground. Once you go that high up and you no longer receive that lifting force, that's when an aircraft can start stalling and dropping back down to the earth, no matter how much thrust you have behind it. In order to get past that without a wing, that's when you start needing a rocket engine, something that can actually provide that additional thrust that the lift of the wings are no longer providing. That is the scientific definition of outer space, is when you are beyond that Kármán line. A good analogy to help you visualize the Kármán line limit for an aircraft versus a spacecraft would be the same defining line of the transition point between water and air when it comes to a submarine. A submarine travels underneath the water or at the surface, and that's as high as that submarine can go. It can't go into the air like an aircraft. It's too heavy, there's no lift, no propulsion once you get out of the water. And once a submarine surfaces, it's basically a completely encapsulated boat and it's sitting on the surface of the water. Same thing with an airplane at the Kármán line. If it is still low enough to where it can still maintain lift, it is at that surface point, like with the submarine in the water. It can barely maintain that. In the water, it's considered buoyancy. In air, it's the lift on the wings of the aircraft. Once the aircraft goes above that point, because it has enough thrust to dip up above the Kármán line, but it's immediately going to start dipping back down because it doesn't have the lifting force to maintain that altitude. And that would be the same thing as if you had a submarine going extremely fast. You've probably seen them breach out the water sometimes in some Hollywood movies, just like a whale breaching out of water. That would be the same concept as what an airplane would be doing if it were to try and skip above the Kármán line. It would immediately start dropping because there's nothing for the wings to push off on. A quick space fact about the SR 71 Blackbird: did you know that the pilots actually received astronaut wings? That's because they were above that limit of 50 miles above the Earth's surface, as calculated by the United States Air Force or the CIA, depending on who was running that particular mission. And but they were below the Kármán line, so the aircraft itself was actually able to maintain lift on the wings and still be between those two limits. So they would get their astronaut wings, but the SR 71 Blackbird would not fly above the atmosphere of the Earth. So that brings us to the end of our video for this week. And as I promised, I'll be asking you a random space fact question. So, what was the first man made object to reach outer space? I'll give you a few hints. First, it is not as easy as you think. It is not pictured in the opening sequence to this video, and it is not in relation to a US nuclear test. So, those of you that are some space sleuths out there, let's see and test your research ability. So, that's the end of our first episode. Thank you very much for watching this far. Please like and subscribe down below and give some comments and feedback. Let me know how you thought about my first episode. I plan on making these a weekly thing. Also, give me some questions that you would like answered, as well as try and answer my space question to you. And good luck out there. Until next time, may the force be with you, ad astra, so say we all, and live long and prosper.